Yeah, thank you all for joining. We are at the last panel, so I know it's been a long day, but this one is going to be alpha-packed. We have an amazing group of panelists here. Maybe as a quick first thing to do, let's have like a quick intro and one fun fact about you guys, just to introduce yourself. So let's start with you, Amrit, and we'll go down.
Yeah, so hi, can you hear me?
I cannot, no. Maybe the mic needs to be on your...
Hello?
Yes.
Yeah, okay. Sorry. Hi, my name is Amit Kumar, and I'm the Chief Operations Officer at AltLayer. We are a RaaS provider. And one cool thing that we do is we offer people a flash layer. So imagine you want to have an OP stack-based rollup, but you don't need that for too long. So let's say maybe you're doing NFT ticketing or something of that kind. You could spin up that instance of OP stack, and when you feel like you're done with it, you don't need this anymore, you can take that down. And when that system gets taken down, the assets or the state goes back to a base chain of your choice. So it could be Optimism mainnet, or it could be Ethereum.
Hey, I'm Louis. I'm co-founder of Gelato Network, and my fun fact about myself is that I have an alt account that is called Rasputin.
I am Peter from Ankr, head of infrastructure. Fun fact, I had not thought of one beforehand. Not sure I have one available. Go ahead.
You can't just pass on the fun fact?
Yeah.
Shoot, I was planning on using that time to think of one for myself.
Yeah.
I'm Parker, co-founder and CTO of
I
Caldera.
don't think it's working. Parker, I don't think it's working.
Can you guys
Hello?
hear me?
Hello? Do I just need to...
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's working.
I'll just sort of like... my fun fact is that my earpiece is a little jank, so I'm just going to do this whenever I want to talk into it.
Great fun facts, guys.
We're all very fun at parties, by the way.
Yeah,
for sure.
Yeah.
Invite us now.
Yeah, just a really quick tip. It does look like the mics are a lot better if they're right in front of your mouth. So just make sure, especially you, Parker. Cool. Let's get into the panel. So maybe we'll start with you, Amrit.
Sure.
I wanted to understand more about rollups and exactly what you guys are building. Generally, like we think of rollups as complicated products. They've taken time to get maturity in the market, and I think we're really there now. People are embracing them in layer 2 in general. But as a byproduct of that, Rollup-as-a-Service has kind of come out and emerged. So, quick question for you: what is Rollup-as-a-Service, and why should I be thinking about it right now?
Yeah, so imagine yourself as, let's say, a game builder or dApp builder, and you want to have your own rollup, you want to have your own chain, essentially, because you want to customize it. Maybe you have a fancy library code that you want to include in the underlying runtime. Maybe you want to have your own fancy gas token. Given that the market is up now, you may want to have your token. So you may have all sorts of reasons to customize the base infrastructure for yourself, right? And so, but the problem is, sometimes it might be a bit complicated to understand the underlying stack, for example, right? And so you reach out to a RaaS provider that makes it easier for you to deploy these rollups. They would maintain, manage, and run these infrastructure for you. And the other good thing that RaaS providers give you is that imagine you are building, let's say, DeFi project, and you have your own stack, and you wanted all sorts of integrations. So you wanted, let's say, an Oracle service, you wanted indexers, you wanted different things that a DeFi protocol would need. You don't have to go and do all the BD work yourself for every single partner and service provider that you want to integrate. So you talk to a RaaS provider that already has spoken to and has integrated some of the services already. So it saves you a lot of time, money, and energy.
Absolutely. So you're saying that if I wanted to launch, like let's say an app chain or something like that, a lot of the heavy lifting comes in like on the integration level, the services level, and that's really something that you're abstracting away.
Exactly.
Awesome. Cool. And really quickly for you, Parker, kind of related to that question, throughout history, we've noticed that if you're a developer, you're really building on an ecosystem, right? You have like OP mainnet, you have base, and we're going into this world of building on chains or building an app chain for yourself. What's changed maybe for you? You guys have built your entire business around this idea of Rollup-as-a-Service, and you guys have emerged. So what's changed? Why is the timing right for teams to develop this today? Is there something new that's come out? What do you think?
I think a couple things. Not that many people know this, but our company was originally founded on the premise that on-chain games would need rollups. Like legitimately, in our pitch deck, the entire premise was that on-chain games are going to be big. Let's get them rollups, then build like verticalized infrastructure. And since then, we've sort of moved to a more general audience. in terms of what's changed, I think a couple things. You know, there have been ecosystem forks of OP for a little while. That's true of OPv1. In fact, our first sort of rollups were on OPv1 back in the day when it was a little less mature than it is now. I think that potentially it was always inevitable as rollups matured, right? Originally, it was a pretty non-trivial task to get a rollup up and running. Even the OP forks that had existed prior of OPv1, these were months and months of engineering effort. But as these stacks got more and more mature, as I guess people like us, AltLayer, other folks, emerged in the market to enable people to do this more easily, I think it mostly just tapped into a lane need that had already existed. Right? We had already seen people spending months of engineering effort to fork OP. Now it's more like you can talk to a RaaS partner and do it. So I do think that the need was potentially always there with rollups. It was more just about making it easier to do it.
Absolutely. And you touched on this a little bit earlier by saying on-chain games. You guys were originally formed for that. Would you say rollup architecture is there now? Are you guys modular enough? Are you swapping things in and out for it to actually do fully on-chain games?
To some extent, I think that on-chain games as a product category still need to mature quite a bit. There's a lot of people working on interesting things there. But the bottom line is at the moment, it's still getting there, right? We run a decent number of on-chain games on testnet. But I would say that depending on the kind of on-chain game, it might need a little bit more to just get to mainnet readiness. I'm not entirely sure if it's on the rollup infrastructure side of things or more on like the on-chain gaming product side of things.
Got it. And if I'm generally a partner, what should I be thinking about? Like, let's say a gaming partner. I need to build a rollup, or maybe I'm not even thinking about a rollup, right? I'm thinking about how do I get this game up and live? What are the considerations, maybe on your side, that you're seeing?
Yeah, so obviously, you should build your own product. I think that's probably the biggest one to do, which is you should build out a decent product. And then when it comes to the rollup infrastructure side, obviously there are the table stakes things that we do for folks, which is like performant RPC nodes, the deployment of things, security, we've been audited, et cetera, ownership of the rollup contracts under a multi-sig. If you want to join the Superchain, that's also a fantastic option. All of these considerations we try to walk people through and present them with what we think makes sense, as well as listen to their feedback. And obviously with teams like Optimism, work together to give them the best product.
Love that, love that. And switching gears a little bit, for you, Peter, since we were talking about infrastructure a little bit on that side, you guys have been building infrastructure for a long time now in Web3. It didn't start as like Rollup-as-a-Service at all. And I would say that you understand from like the builder perspective, right? So like things like stability of networks, stability of like the services that you guys provide. I'm curious why you guys decided to go into this Rollup-as-a-Service world.
I think, we've been a partner with Optimism for a while and recently started running in partnership with others for the main RPC business as well. We've also been running Coinbase Base and so on, supporting RPC for that. And we just generally have a lot of experience. We built our own app chain product previous to this and had customers for that, still have customers for that. So generally we have the experience across a whole range of things, validators, all sorts of staking, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So we can bring all of that knowledge together as a good partner for these. Specifically for Optimism, Optimism, as I said, has been a partner of ours. We've been a supporter for V1, V2. I think this is the main thing. We have to remain sort of agnostic about these things. We're not, Optimism is not the only roll-up solution that we support. Optimism is definitely one of the leading roll-up solutions. And as clients come to us and ask for us, they're interested in Optimism. So as a solution, Superchains, et cetera.
And to just double click on that question, since you guys talked about you have provided infra services for a lot of these chains for so long. Would you say that it's very translatable to running stable roll-up architecture as well?
To a certain extent, we certainly do not have, and nobody does really have an enormous experience running sequences, for example, because in general they've been run by the chains themselves. And so that is sort of a new thing for us to do. But in general, it is high-powered architecture that we definitely have done before, and definitely, I believe, will be capable of doing so when that becomes available.
Got it. What's the worst part of running sequencers?
I don't know yet. I guess I'll find out. But I mean, I think there is an inherent sort of perception about sequences, centralization risks, et cetera, et cetera. So there's probably something to overcome there for people who care about these kinds of risks. Yeah, I think there's a perception thing, and then it's just going to be a lot of hardware, I suspect.
Absolutely, and I think like the reason why I'm asking like those questions is like we noticed that like a lot of partners come out and they want to self-host and really launch their own chains, and they run into a lot of these issues with like hosting the architecture, getting all the services. It's like a large problem in itself. So it's not as simple as like being able to boot up the infra necessarily. So it's really cool to see your guys' intuition on it. Did we catch that? Go ahead, try. No.
Test, yeah, this works.
It is working.
Yeah, I was just adding key management is something that's super important if you're running sequences on any of the rollup infrastructure.
What's the difficulty in key management? Is it the right practices, the decentralization?
No, one is basically that you have potentially, let's say, if you have one key that, let's say executes transactions, commits back on the base chain, you want to make sure that that is handled and protected correctly. So by the way, there are solutions out in the market that people building cloud-based solutions. I think that's really important if you're thinking about both for rollup-as-a-service providers, but also more generally, if you want to run your own sequencer, keys are important.
Absolutely. Is that a common concern from clients and customers that you guys deal with?
Definitely. I mean, somebody comes and says they want to do an OP stack rollup, and you're like, well, who should run the sequencer? Who should control the keys, et cetera, et cetera? It's definitely something that needs to be tackled. And to be honest, I don't have full clarity about how we're going to do this right now.
It's an iterating problem, right? We're all working towards better solutions over time. Luis, I wanted to chat with you a little bit too. So you're similar. You guys have been in the space for a long time. Gelato is, if you guys haven't checked it out, we had a cart upstairs. Really
Make sure
fun.
to get some ice cream.
Yeah, make sure you get some ice cream. So you guys have been building in the space with devs for a very long time. And I'd love your insight in that area. What do you think the main factors are for like what I should consider when I want to build a rollup or an L2 for my product?
So, I mean, first of all, to tackle that question maybe from the other angle, what we realized providing our essential services in the space for 4 years, smart contract automation, account abstraction, serverless Web3 functions, all of these things, our goal here was to allow developers to build much more powerful applications, and many developers and DeFi teams have gone on to use Gelato in production for UX, protocol upkeep, all of these things. But we realized that our value prop was limited by the underlying base layer. Like a lot of times, for example, with account abstraction, we want developers to pay gas for all of their users so that no user has to deal with the complexity of a gas market anymore, which is, I think, one of the key reasons we are not mainstream adopted yet, is because of these sort of complexities that haven't been abstracted enough. But we built the technology to abstract that, but it ended up being too expensive for most projects to sponsor the gas, right? And that's a base layer problem. That's why we are so excited about RaaS now, is because now we can actually use technology to make all of our services on top much more powerful. We can make blockchains much cheaper, much faster and everything. And all the services that we built in the last 4 years that are production ready and tested can now benefit from an underlying base layer upgrade. That being said, I think today most rollup stacks are still quite expensive to run. We do have, for example, a couple of ZK EVMs in production with Polygon. They're very expensive to run. And that means that right now you should already prepare for a future where your next version should be on a rollup. But right now it is true that you need a bit of a budget to experiment and to launch a rollup chain. We hope that together with you guys we can actually bring these costs down so that the barrier to entry here gets lower. But yeah, apart from that, so cost is a big thing. apart from that, I think the world is your oyster there, right? Like with rollups, you can build much more powerful DeFi applications. You should consider things like you can have account abstraction built into the rollup. You can have zero gas rollups where literally none of your users, including you, have to pay any gas anymore using a Plasma, right? Like hopefully that comes live soon with Celestia or whatnot. You can do amazing things like for enterprises like doing allow lists or KYC so that only sort of regulated entities can transact on your rollup, which is a huge unlock. Part of the reason why I'm wearing a suit today is I want to send a message that crypto should not just be, the gang that we were the last 6 years. Like we want the suits to come in as well. We want the family fathers and mothers to come in as well, right? So for that, you just have to have some rules, and that wasn't possible on public blockchains before. Now with rollups, that's very possible. We can build regulated rollup tech that enterprises can actually use, which is huge, I think. And there's many other things that you can consider sort of now with this technology being on the market.
Absolutely. And I think some of the main themes that you're hinting over at is customizability is a really key theme, right? So if you want a real good product, and you guys as Gelato have been building services to create better experiences over time, rollups can help unlock that from a customizability level. Is that kind of the direction that you guys are going?
Absolutely. I would say rollups are rollup technology like OP Stack and so on give developers like ourselves a lot more tooling that can make everything 100x faster, cheaper, whatever. And that's really where you have to start. We realized we were starting at the middleware layer, right? And we did definitely solved a lot of problems there. But we were very limited by the underlying scalability problems of the base layer. And now with the amazing sort of tools that obviously Optimism built, we now can solve our own problems by running a Rollup-as-a-Service, by integrating with all of these providers like RPC providers, wallet as a service, all of these things. We sort of have to come together, and we have to get the overall cost down for users so that at some point launching your rollup is just like launching your Web2 SaaS application on AWS. It's like everything is there, the commercials are abstracted. You can just go to one shop. You can, select your technology, like an SQL database. You might select OP Stack, and then you can sort of add your vendors on top of that to make your application whole. And that shouldn't be so prohibitively expensive anymore. And at that point, for the first time, we will see applications that rival with the likes of Binance and so on, but that are actually decentralized and trustless, at least to a great extent. And that's what I'm really bullish on here.
I love that. And I think just building better products in this space is really what we're trying to go after.
Absolutely.
Evolving as a space. I totally agree with that sentiment. Couple of quick rapid fire questions for all of you. We'll try it and see if it's chaotic, and then if it is, we'll figure it out. Quick question. What are you most excited about in the next 6 months for this domain, and how do you think it's going to evolve?
Okay, I feel like, is it working?
No, it's not. Can we get the mic on?
Hello? Okay,
Yes.
it's working now.
Working now.
It's a bit random. I think we all envision a world with thousands of rollups or 10,000 rollups, right? I think there's one thing that, of course, is very interesting in that in that world is interoperability. I think this is where Superchain comes in very interesting. So I think you will see a lot of people building interesting permissionless system that allows people to send assets or send messages across these rollups. That's one thing. The second thing that I'm excited about regarding OP is I would love to see, and we're seeing some of the works being done on having some version of ZK coming in as well. So, and we have different proof systems are coming in OP Stack. So I think these are two concrete infrastructure level things that I'm really excited about. And third thing would be on the app side, where a lot of people are building, using some of these stacks, including OP Stack, and many of them are at the moment on testnet. So in the next 6 months, many of them actually would go live. So you would see actual, many of these rollups in action, and you can play fun, engaging games there.
Absolutely. Any other thoughts from our panel?
Yeah, I'm actually very excited for things that will cut down gas costs. We've been getting killed recently with the ETH gas spikes on Manta. It's been like 170, like on the rollup itself, it's been like $4 to do a transaction. So we're very excited about just like things that'll cut down the cost of like submitting data. So obviously AltLayer, we built out that integration with Celestia on the OP stack on mainnet for Manta. But also I've been tracking like the progress of the span batches PRs. It's actually super exciting to see that that like South Korean studio actually just sort of like contribute that feature. I haven't actually looked at the architecture too carefully, but I'm actually super excited to see that just sort of like cut down, supposedly drastically cut down the cost of posting data.
Yeah, for me, I'm actually on that point, I'm personally most bullish on the concept of a zero gas rollup again, where you can literally have users pay zero gas and the developer can also actually pay the bills here and doesn't get bankrupt. Because zero gas rollups are for end users possible today, but developers can't pay for them, right? But what I'm most excited about there is identity solutions like WorldCoin. We just heard an amazing talk, right? Like this is what I'm extremely bullish on, because gas is, in gas costs, gas bad, right? Like that's the reason why mainstream isn't here today. One of the main reasons. And the problem is gas is sort of this double-edged sword where on the other hand you need it for DOS protection, for spam protection. And you realize that once you really lower the gas cost on a chain, you suddenly have all sorts of spam issues. Your sequencer gets spammed, stuff doesn't work anymore, right? So these identity solutions are needed as a new primitive to regulate throughput on chain really via identities. And so I'm bullish on WorldCoin and any identity project out there really. Shout out Civic Pass, shout out Fractal ID, all these guys, I think they're doing God's work and they will be hugely important in what's to come here.
Yeah, I think what I really appreciated also Vitalik saying yesterday about dank sharding and so on, improving all of the shrinking call data, etc. It really feels like the Ethereum ecosystem is moving towards really recognizing that solutions like rollups that's the future, at least for the foreseeable future. So that's really encouraging. I think that gives sort of confidence towards people who are moving towards rollups and so on. And the other thing is, I mean, we started in the app chains business a long time ago, and really our kind of vision there was the ecosystem of ecosystems, and I think that Optimism RaaS really provides that. It's an interoperability, it's the possibility for all of these rollups to talk to each other and communicate with each other, and et cetera, and create an ecosystem between things. So that may not be in the next 6 months, but that's definitely the things that excite me.
A lot of alpha coming out in the next 6 months to a year. Cool, we're gonna wrap it up with one question from the audience. We wanna know more about the tools and services that are included in the RaaS package. Are we talking provers, sequencers, key management services? Yeah, let's talk it through it. What does RaaS provide?
Sure, so a bunch of things actually, and it also depends on the kind of use case that you're targeting. So some of the basic stuff would be, let's say, an indexer, right? You want your chain to be indexed. You want, for example, an Oracle service, for instance. So there's some of the basic stuff that comes in anyway, but I think over time you would see a lot of other services coming in. For example, Espresso. You could take, let's say, OP stack and say, hey, I want to have a decentralized share sequencer. I want to use Espresso. So you could basically send your transaction to Espresso, and Espresso would send those order transactions back, and that could be executed by the RaaS provider. So I think the list is endless. So I think a lot of people, bridging, for example, is another interesting area where people are building all sorts of interop services. So you could tap directly through that RaaS provider as well. So I would say a bunch of these, but I would say every other day I'm seeing someone building something interesting that can be easily integrated into RaaS services. And I think you should do that. If you're building an infra, build in a way that is not super permissioned. No one wants to go through to your governance portal and say, hey, please add this support for this token or this chain. It's not going to work. Please build a permissionless system so that we can integrate some of those services quite easy for our clients.
Yeah, and I think your question there, like what should users expect in terms of tooling available and so on, it's a very good one, it's a tough one. Because users certainly can't come with the expectation that all of the mature tooling ecosystem that you have on Ethereum will magically appear on your RaaS, right? Like someone has to pay these bills. And one problem here is that on Ethereum we have a public shared network. The whole point of RaaS is to actually give you your own dedicated chain, right? So that's a very different model. What you lose in this model is this sort of sharing of cost. Like Etherscan is happy to be on Ethereum, Chainlink is happy to be on Ethereum, because every user on Ethereum in all these protocols is somewhat paying for these services. On your RaaS, you're suddenly sort of reducing the scope to just your own user base, and now technically you have to pay for everything. And that's why I think it's still early days. it's not good enough to just go and say, yeah, we have all of these integrations. You go and figure out these commercial deals with each and every one of them. That's horrible. Like that won't lead to adoption. So as a RaaS provider, what we sort of focus on is going to each of these providers and literally educating them about our vision for the future of 1,000 or 2,000, a million app chains, right? Roll-apps, and then really making them understand that they have to change everything sometimes. Like they're not, some of them aren't ready. Like some of them have to start from scratch, re-architect everything they built, because what they built was informed by constraints put upon them from Ethereum. That's different on a roll-up where you don't have these gas costs, where everything is different, right? Like, so some of these systems simply aren't ready. They will have to be re-architected to bring these costs down, to fully automate everything, and then they're ready to really, expand and get as much market share in the RaaS world as possible, because they can only do that if they bring the cost down, the unit cost down, and make everything fully automated. So we're working there with all of these great partners. Some of them are sort of ready, some of them, great ones, aren't ready at all yet, and I think this will be the hardest part in the RaaS market, is actually re-architecting everything, starting from scratch, doing away with the Ethereum constraints and sort of rethinking here.
Yeah, I think, actually, I mean, although we would love to be the solution for everybody to come along and we do everything for you, et cetera, I think there's actually a really interesting sort of market evolving where not every part of the roll-up has to be done by Ankr or by somebody. There may be specialists who are involved in the custody for the keys or running the sequencer, etc. And so actually the thing that we're exploring is, are there third parties that can help us with those things, that can take on some of the responsibility? And I think that's a really interesting market dynamic.
Yeah, so for Caldera, this is how I think about it. We are mainnet ready. We do all the table stakes infrastructure, right? We're securing, I think, 25 mil of TVL for Manta Pacific, live on mainnet. We do the RPCs, we get the indexers, et cetera, right? We do the infrastructure. But I think, at least when it comes to our philosophy, I think the main service we provide is, why should your rollup exist? What is the point of having a rollup, and how is it differentiated against the market? So we really pride ourselves in being on the bleeding edge of the modular thesis of rollup technology, right? As I mentioned earlier, we have done a lot of OP Stack mods. We implemented a custom gas token feature on OP Stack live in testnet. We've added custom precompiles for people. We work with Espresso on Vienna testnet, which is the first OP Stack testnet to use shared sequencing. We built out the Celestia integration with the Manta team and the Celestia team as well. And I think at the end of the day, right, we do the infra, but I think where we think RaaS should be is to answer the question of why should your rollup exist, and how can we partner together to make this like a success?
Absolutely, yeah. Breaking old mental models and building newer, better products over time. I love it. Cool, guys. That is all the time that we have. Thank you guys for joining the panel today. If anybody wants to talk to any of these guys, they're going to be here after. Please talk to them. They're doing a lot of partnerships work. And yeah, thank you for joining.
Well, thank you for inviting us. Thank you.